What's up guys? In today's video, I'm going to show you 5 crucial settings that's going to take your video skills to the next level. Grab a drink, grab some snacks, and let's get started. The first setting we're going to look at is resolution. Now, when it comes to resolution, you want to make sure that you utilize the maximum resolution of that expensive camera you just bought. So in my case, I'm using the Sony a7S III. Now, the max file format is the XAVC-S-I 4K. An alternate option is actually to use the XAVC-HS, which is also a 4K, but it uses the H.265 codec, which will give you more recording time. Now be careful, because if you have an older computer, it will have a lot of difficulties editing an H.265 codec. Also, if your camera menu doesn't look like mine, just make sure that you're on the most recent Sony upgrade, especially for the a7S III. Just a quick interruption from our sponsor here. He wanted to say hi and see how things are going, you know, with the video and everything. The really cool thing about subscribing to this channel is not only do you get amazing filmmaking tips, you get, you know, behind the scenes, you get tutorials, you get reviews, all that good stuff, but you also get a lot of this cute little guy. So you should really subscribe to this channel and get a little bit more Muji, you know? Alright, now let's get back to the video. The second thing you want to change is your ISO. Now you want to make sure that you set your camera to its native ISO. In our case, this is 640. Now the next thing you want to do is change it to 24 frames per second. Now this is really what will give you that cinematic motion blur, because most films are shot at 24 frames per second. And as far as your shutter speed, you want to set it 1/48 or 1/50 if your camera model doesn't have 1/48. And if you're a little bit confused about all the settings that I just said, don't worry. I have another video that goes over all of the basics of camera settings in this video right here. Here, maybe around here, we'll see. The next setting that we're going to change is aperture. Now, usually a lens performs best at f4 or t4 as far as sharpness and quality. But to get that cinematic pop, you're gonna want a lens that opens up a little bit wider than that. Something between 1.4 to 2.8 will really give you a blurred background, and that allows you to really separate the subject from the background, giving that subject a little bit more pop, a little bit more zest, you know? It gives that really nice look. And it's also a great way to draw the audience's attention to your subject and not really focus on what's going on in the background. Now, with Sony cameras, you have a bunch of picture profiles already in camera. But what we're gonna wanna shoot at is actually S-Log3, which by default is PP8. Now, when you change into log, you're gonna get a very gray and flat image. There's a few tweaks that I would recommend you to do. First thing, when you're adding sharpness to your image in post, it's a lot more demanding on your computer. So what I do in my case is I actually just change the detail to -1 instead of the automatic -8, and I do add a little bit of saturation. I don't go over +15. I kind of have it set at +12, +13, depending on the shot, just so I'm able to get a decent color with the monitor. Also, a little bonus tip, I would highly recommend that you turn gamma assist on in order to really help you expose S-Log a little bit easier, so you're not just always looking at a gray and flat image. Now, you might be asking, why would you want to shoot in S-Log3? It looks horrible. It looks gray, it looks flat, it looks really bad. But that's really the thing that's going to really make your image pop is in post-processing, because you're shooting at a very gray and flat image in order to push your colors even further than you could if you bake in another of the color profiles. So you actually have a lot more freedom and a lot more possibilities when you shoot in log in order to push your footage and make it look much more cinematic. Alright, now we're moving on to setting number 4, which is white balance. It's really important to get that correct in camera, because if you make a mistake when you get to coloring, you really can't push your image as much and you're going to be super limited to what you can do. A general rule of thumb, if you're shooting outside, that's usually at 56,000 Kelvin, and if you're shooting inside with warmer lights, that's usually at 32,000 Kelvin. So if your image is too blue, try bringing up the Kelvin to 56, and if it's too warm, try bringing it down to 32. If you're not sure, you're looking at the shot and you're unsure of what color temperature to set it, just grab a white piece of paper or a white card and you can set it as a custom profile, and then the camera is going to give you accurate color on scene, which is so important. Now, tip number 5 is actually zebras. I don't know if you guys know, but when you overexpose on a digital camera, you're actually ruining the footage. You actually cannot recover any of that information. So once you pass a certain threshold of the camera, you lose all of that footage. And the dynamic range of most digital cameras is actually much better in low light conditions than it is in highlights or in your sky. So the moment you clip, you lose that information. So what you're going to want to do with your zebra settings is your first option is going to be setting it up at 92 plus or minus 1 or 2. Now this will be the clipping point, so you do not want to see any zebras in your camera. And just double check your specific camera model in case that might be a little bit different. But on the Sony a7S III, you're going to want to set it to 92 plus or minus 2. And it can be a little bit confusing because on default, it starts at 100. But 100 is way past the clipping point of what most cameras can do. You want to make sure for your specific camera model, you set it to the right thing so you're not overexposing your image. And an overexposed image really does not look professional. And the second thing that I do is the custom 2 for zebras. I actually set that to 52 plus or minus 2. That is for my skin tone. So the bright side of the skin tone, so in this case I have a light here, and on this side I want to make sure that the zebras start appearing at 52. I kind of bring up the exposure until I see the zebras appear, and then I know that my skin tone is properly exposed. But I'm also making sure with the 92 zebras that nothing is clipping in the image. And there we have it. Now experiment with those settings and see the difference that that's going to make on your footage. Now, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, share it with your filmmaker friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more tips, tutorials, and filmmaking content.